Hello, beautiful homemakers. I'm continuing the October chapters of 1,000 Ways to Please a Husband with Bettina's Best Recipes from 1917. Chapter 66. A Guest to a Dinner of Leftovers. Aha! I've found you out! Bettina heard a laughing voice shout as she hurried up the steps. Why, Jack, when did you come to town? This afternoon. Went to Bob's office the very first thing, and he insisted on bringing me home with him to dinner. I told him it might put you out, but he spent the time it took to come home assuring me that you were always waiting for company. Kept the light ever burning in the window for them and all that. He said that I'd see, that you'd be on the doorstep waiting for us. And after all that you weren't here, said Bob reproachfully. I'm just as sorry as I can be not to live up to Bob's picture of me, said Bettina. I generally am waiting for Bob, almost on the doorstep, if not quite. But this afternoon I've been to a shower for Alice. Do you remember Alice, Jack? Very well. The dark-eyed one. You don't mean to say that she's found a man who's lively enough to suit her? Well, she seems to be suited all right. But I must fly into an apron if you boys are to get any dinner within a half hour. Jack, you'll have to pardon me if after all of Bob's eloquence I give you a meal of leftovers. Don't apologize to a bachelor, Bettina. He probably won't know leftovers from the real thing, said Bob. Bachelors are said to be the most critical of all, she answered. But I'll do my little best to please. That night Bettina served roast beef pie, bread, butter, sliced tomatoes with salad dressing, marble cake, and coffee. Marble cake makes 14 slices, 1 cup sugar, a half a cup of butter, cream together and divide into 2 parts, half for light and half for dark. Dark part to 1/2 add, well, it's actually quite involved. If you really want to see this recipe, you should look for it on my website. Chapter 67. A Handkerchief Shower. What a cunning table! Exclaimed 4 girls in various words and ways. Ruth and Bettina smiled happily to each other, for they too had admired the low bowl of purple and yellow pansies in the center, and the tiny individual vases for a few pansies at each place. The dainty doilies were also attractive, and Ruth had darkened the room and lit the small yellow candles on the table. But Bettina helped with the souffle and the gold hearts, she said gallantly. Did you see her disappear a short time ago? She was baking the cakes. When she suggested refreshments should be made just before they were served, I was frightened. But when she offered to bake the things, you may be sure I was delighted. At this moment a small figure appeared in the doorway. Wedding Cousin Ruth? Yes, dear. In popped little Marjorie, Ruth's cousin, carrying a huge bouquet of handkerchiefs folded like white roses, fastened somehow to long stems with green leaves attached, tied with streaming yellow satin ribbon. Making a low bow to Alice, she recited in a baby voice, A handkerchief posy to carry each day. We trust they will not come amiss. In fact, we are sure that no other bouquet was ever so useful as this. Thank you, darling, said Alice, receiving the gift with delight. Ruth served apricot souffle, whipped cream, gold hearts, salted peanuts, and coffee. I have the whipped cream and gold hearts and salted almonds on my website. I don't know if gold hearts are cake or cookies. They're heart-shaped cookie cutter, so maybe they were cookies. Chapter 68. Just the 2 of them. It seems good to be alone this evening, doesn't it, Bettina? Said Bob as they sat down to dinner. Or are you growing so accustomed to gaiety lately that a dinner for 2 is a bore? Bob, said Bettina reproachfully, if I thought you really believed that I was ever bored by a dinner for the 2 of us, well, I'd never be in a wedding party again. Alice likes excitement, and I suppose that next week will be very gay. But after the wedding I hope that you and I can have a quiet winter, with just invitations enough to keep us from becoming too stupid. But tell me what the wedding will be like. Is it all planned down to the last detail? I suppose it is, although Harry doesn't seem to have any idea what it is to be. Poor Harry. He seems to be left out of most of the showers and parties so far. Don't pity him. He wouldn't go if he could. I'm just wondering what they'll do after the wedding. Will Alice go and Harry stay at home? Or will he be obliging and force himself to go too? I don't know, I'm sure. Alice is so full of life that I don't see how she can settle down and never go anywhere, as Harry would have her. But time will tell. Perhaps they'll compromise. Meanwhile, we must plan some sort of a shower or prenuptial party that Harry can enjoy. One with the men included, I mean. Of course, I know he hates parties, but I think he would really like a very jolly informal one with just a few friends. The dinner for two consisted of cold sliced lamb, baked potatoes, creamed carrots and peas, bread, butter, apple dumplings. I have the creamed carrots and peas and apple dumpling on my website. Chapter 69. A Luncheon in the Country. Oh, Charlotte, I have just come from the loveliest luncheon, said Bettina, coming face to face with Mrs. Dixon in front of her own home. You have? Another for Alice? No, this was in the country, on the interurban at Cousin Kate's. Frances, her daughter, who was married last spring, has come home on a visit, and Cousin Kate was entertaining for her. Oh, tell me all about it. Oh, it's just an informal luncheon, but I couldn't help thinking how delicious everything was, and at the same time inexpensive. In fact, I wrote down several of Cousin Kate's recipes after the guests had gone, and I'm sure that there aren't many such inexpensive luncheons that are also so good. You must let me have some of the recipes. Of course I will. Come in now and copy them. I can't possibly, Bettina. As it is, I'm afraid that Frank will be home before I am. It's almost 6 o'clock now. Is it? Then I must hurry in and start dinner. I want to make some muffins. I hate to have Bob eat a cold dinner just because I've been out in the afternoon. In fact, I usually spend more time than usual in the morning fixing some dessert that he especially likes, if I'm to be out in the afternoon. Goodbye, Charlotte. Goodbye, dear. The luncheon menu was as follows: oyster cocktail and pepper cases, cream of celery soup, croutons, cheese timbales, creamed peas, baked apples, baking powder biscuit, green bean salad, salted wafers, lemon sherbet, devil's food white icing, and coffee. I have the recipe for the devil's food cake on my website. Chapter LXX. Chapter 70. A Pear Shower for Alice. When Bettina called the girls into the dining room after several hours spent in hemming dish towels for Alice, they exclaimed that the time had passed so quickly. The table was set for 12, and the chair at the right of the hostess was gaily decorated with white ribbon and white paper flowers. "Oh, for me?" cried Alice. "How important I feel!" As soon as the girls were seated, Ruth rose and placed before the guest of honor a large wicker basket, heaped high with packages of all shapes and sizes, each wrapped in white tissue paper and tied with white ribbon. A card hung from the handle of the basket. "I'll read it aloud," laughed Alice. "Dear Alice, we have tried to choose some gifts for you that come by twos. A few perhaps you'll often use, while some may comfort and amuse, if you should chance to get the blues, when household cares your mind confuse. This basket which our blessing bears, besides the gifts that come in pairs, our friendship and our love declares. 'Twill share your troubles and your cares, and hold the hose that Harry wears, so keep them free from holes and tears." "Goodness!" cried Alice. "The thought of of my future cares frightens me. But now I must open all the packages. She discovered a salt and pepper shaker, a pair of guest towels, a pair of hose, a sugar bowl and a creamer, and many other gifts in pairs. It was a long time before the girls could calm down sufficiently to eat the luncheon that Bettina, with Ruth's assistance, set before them. Bettina served Bettina's tuna salad, date bread sandwiches, salted peanuts, maple ice cream, white cake with maple icing, and coffee. I have the tuna salad, salad dressing, and salted peanuts on my website. Chapter 71. Bob makes popcorn balls. "Oh, I forgot to tell you, Bettina," said Bob at the dinner table. "The Dixons are coming over this evening. Frank asked me if we would be at home." "I'm so glad they're coming. I haven't seen Charlotte for several weeks. I've been so busy with the affairs we girls have been giving for Alice. But I wish I had known this afternoon that they were coming. I'd like to celebrate with a little supper, but I haven't a single thing in the house that is suitable." "There's the cider that Uncle John brought us," suggested Bob. "Yes, we might have cider, but what else?" "I'll tell you. I'll make some popcorn balls. I've made them before, and I know exactly how." "I'll help." "No, I won't need you at all. I'm the chef." "Well, Bobby, at least you'll let me look on. May I be washing the dishes at the same time?" "Yes, I'll permit that. These are going to be champion popcorn balls, I can tell you, Bettina, as big as pumpkins." "We'll serve them in that large, flat wicker basket, and I'm sure they'll look and taste delicious. But we must hurry, Bob. It's after 7 now." For dinner that night they had broiled ham, mashed potatoes, chili sauce, creamed onions, hot scones, prune blancmange with cream, and on my website I have the scones. Or, as they say in England, scones. But we're in America, so it's scones. Chapter 72. And where was the dinner? "Hello?" called Bob at the door one evening. No answer. "Hello, Bettina!" he called again. Again the dark house gave forth no reply. Feeling, it must be admitted, a little out of harmony with a world that allowed weary and hungry husbands to come home to dark and empty houses, when the clock said plainly that it was 6:15, Bob made his way to the kitchen. Perhaps Bettina had left his dinner there for him. Perhaps she had been called away. Or perhaps, even, she had rushed out on some errand after dinner preparations were begun. The kitchen, however, was so immaculate as to seem distinctly forbidding to a hungry man whose appetite was growing keener every minute. And he had been thinking all the way home that a hot dinner would taste so good. At that moment a clamor of voices at the door aroused him. "You poor old Bob!" cried Bettina, kissing him twice before Fred and Ruth without the least embarrassment. "Have you waited long?" "It seems hours," admitted Bob. "Ruth and I have been to a tea for Alice. Fred came for her there, and I persuaded them to come home to dinner with me. I'll give you each something to do while I stir up a little cottage pudding. Then dinner will be ready in half an hour." "Half an hour?" cried Bob. "But, Bettina, where's the dinner? I didn't see any." "In the fireless cooker, you crazy boy. Are you most starved?" "Well, that cooker was the neatest, stiffest-looking thing in the kitchen. I didn't dream that it was busily cooking a dinner. Say, I'll be glad to see a hot meal again." The dinner consisted of round steak with vegetables, Dutch cheese, bread, plum butter, cottage pudding, and vanilla sauce. Chapter 73. Alice tells her troubles. "And the minute I caught a glimpse of you, Bettina, at the tea this afternoon, I thought, oh, if Betty would only ask me to go home with her to a sensible, home-like dinner with no one there but herself and Bob." "Not even Harry, Alice?" "No, not even Harry. I'm so sick and tired of teas and dressmakers and wedding gowns and bridesmaids that I'm even tired of Harry, too." "Almost." Alice, then, why do it at all? Why have all this fuss and feathers?" And Bettina's knife with which she was cutting bread came down with a click of vehemence. "It has always seemed silly to me, all the worry and bother. But what can I do now, Bettina? I've started, and I'll have to go through with it. Why, even now I ought to be home for dinner. Mother has several guests, but I phoned her that I had a headache and was coming here where I could be quiet. And I do have a headache and no appetite, and just wait till you taste this nice brown meat that I have in the oven, Alice. The trouble with you is that you've been eating silly party food for such a long time, and tonight you are to have a sensible dinner with plain people." "Plain people? Who calls me plain?" interrupted Bob, coming in like a tornado. "Hello, Alice! How can you spare any time from all these festivities I hear about?" For dinner that night they had rolled flank of beef with bread dressing, browned potatoes, hot slaw, prune pudding, cream, and coffee. Chapter 74. The Dixons Come to Dinner. "Charlotte, you must have Bettina tell you how to cook fish this way," said Frank. "It's the bechamel sauce on it that you like, I suspect," said Bettina. "And it isn't at all hard to make. I serve it with so many things. We like it with carrots." "Oh, is it the very same sauce that you serve with carrots?" asked Charlotte. "I can make it, Frank. I'll have it for dinner one of these days with halibut, just as Bettina has served it tonight." "There's only one thing to think about, especially in making it," said Bettina. "After you have beaten the egg slightly, add a very little of the hot liquid to it, and then pour the mixture into the rest. Then cook it a short time, not long, as a sauce made with egg sometimes separates." "I'll remember," said Charlotte. "You do have such good meals, Bettina. How do you manage it? Sometimes I can think of the best things to cook, and other days I don't seem to have a bit of imagination." "I plan my menu all out a week, and sometimes 2 weeks ahead. It is really quite a complicated process, as I want to have variety, as well as inexpensive things that are on the market. Of course, I may change my plans in many details, but I keep to the general outline. Planning the meals seems simple, but it really requires a lot of thinking sometimes. Excuse me while I bring in the dessert. Bob, will you please help me take the plates?" The menu that night consisted of sautéed halibut steak, bechamel sauce, potato cubes, butter sauce, sliced cucumbers and onions with vinegar, rolls, butter, prune whip, whipped cream, and coffee. Her butter sauce had chopped parsley and green pepper and paprika in it. Chapter LXXV 75. The Wedding Invitations. Bob and Bettina had scarcely sat down to dinner one crisp cold evening when they heard laughing voices at the door. "It sounds like Alice," said Bettina. "What can she be up to now? And Harry, too." Bob had already thrown open the door, and there, as Bettina had guessed, were Alice and Harry, each carrying a large box. "We've come to deliver your invitation to the wedding," said Alice. "It may be unconventional, but it's fun. The rest we are going down to mail. That is, if we don't get frightened at the idea and pitch the boxes in the river instead." "If that's the way you feel," said Harry firmly, "I'll carry your box myself." "Please don't, Harry. Just think, I may never have another opportunity of mailing the invitations to my own wedding, so don't deprive me of the privilege." "Stay to dinner, won't you?" asked Bettina. "We had really planned on having Uncle John and Aunt Mary this evening, but they didn't come to town after all, so I'm pretty sure we have plenty, even to apple dumplings for dessert." "Harry had asked me to take dinner with him downtown, by way of celebrating when these invitations were mailed," said Alice. "But perhaps we might stay here instead, since this was the very place in which we first met. Harry, I believe sentiment demands that we accept Bettina's invitation." "I must broil another steak," said Bettina, "but that will only take a few minutes. I'm so glad you can stay." but we'll have to leave immediately after dinner, for these invitations simply must be mailed this evening." That night for dinner Bettina served beefsteak, mashed potatoes, turnips, lettuce, Bettina's Russian salad dressing, apple dumplings, and cream. I have the turnips, lettuce, and dressing and apple dumplings on my website. Chapter 76, Halloween Preparations. "There it is again," said Bob to Ruth, who was dining with them. "Now it's gone." "I feel the same old Halloween thrill that I used to years ago," said Bettina, "when I turn around suddenly and see a jack-o'-lantern grinning in at the window. Don't you love them?" "Those are the Stewart children," said Bob. "They're just hoping that I'll come out and chase them away. There's no fun for them in having us like it too well. You girls ought to give at least an imitation of a shriek apiece. You don't have ladylike nerves at all." "Bob, that jack-o'-lantern reminds me that we have a piece of work laid out for you, making the jack-o'-lanterns for a Halloween party we have just planned. Will you do it?" "Will I? Indeed I will. I haven't made one for years and years, not since I was a boy." "Years and years and years and years," said Ruth, laughing. "Well, this party is in honor of Harry, so you mustn't tell him anything about it, not even that we're giving it. And, Bob, I believe Fred would help make the jack-o'-lanterns." "See here, Ruth, you want Fred to get half the credit for the artistic job I'm going to do? Well, for your sake, I may let him help a little, but I'm bossing the work, I can tell you. Why, I'm particular." That evening's menu consisted of breaded lamb chops, baked potatoes, creamed peas, sliced tomatoes, salad dressing, steamed date pudding, lemon sauce, and coffee. And the last chapter, LXXVII, Chapter 77, Halloween Revels. "Come, on mystic Halloween, let us seek the dreadful scene where the witches, imps, and devils, elves, and ghosts will hold their revels. 1107 Carberry Avenue, 7 o'clock. This was the invitation received by Harry, Alice, Fred, and even Bob, who had an inkling of what was about to happen, inasmuch as 1107 Carberry Avenue happened to be his own address. At 7 o'clock that evening Bob was nowhere to be found. However, when 4 horribly disguised figures were ushered into the house, the witch who pointed the way up the stairs seemed satisfied. A few minutes later, the ghosts, having removed such garments as were needed only in the outer air, assembled in the weirdly lighted living room. All of the electric lights were covered with yellow crepe paper shades with faces cut in them. Jack-o'-lanterns stood in every conceivable place, and a fire burned brightly in the open fireplace. The hostesses commenced a weird chant in a minor key. The male ghosts, 3 in number, immediately took up the music, if it could be so called, howling in loud and uncanny tones. Thereupon the witch hostesses beckoned the whole company with all speed to the dining room. The table was a mass of color and light. Potatoes, carrots, and beets, with sticks for legs, held the lighted candles. At each place were individual favors, holding the place cards, and small jack-o'-lanterns standing beside them. The center of the table was a miniature field of pumpkins and cornstalks. The place cards were read, and the places were found. The guest of honor, he who sat at the right of her who was evidently witch in charge, discovered the following on his card, and the others were equally descriptive and illuminating. "This place is laid for one who soon will marry. O youth bewitched by maiden moon, be wary. But if you can't, then make it soon, dear Harry." The supper, decorative as well as delicious, was all upon the table. Little individual pumpkin pies on paper doilies stood beside each place. The salad caused much delight among the guests, who had now removed their masks. A large red apple with a face cut on the outside had been hollowed out, and the salad was within. On the top of the apple was a round wafer with a marshmallow upon it to represent a hat. The hat was further decorated with a stick-up of stick candy on one side. The apple stood on a leaf of lettuce with a yellow salad dressing necktie. The favor boxes were filled with candy corn, while the popcorn balls placed on a platter had features of chocolate fudge and bonnets of frilled paper. The supper menu was as follows: oyster patties, Bettina's surprise salad, Halloween sandwiches, pickles, pumpkin pie, cider, donuts, jumbles, and popcorn balls. "Have another jumble, Harry," urged Ruth. "See, this one has unusual eyes and a particularly soulful expression." "I have already eaten so many that I fear my memory of this party will be a jumble of faces. I'll see them in my sleep, all with that soulful expression." "Another toasted marshmallow, Bettina?" asked Fred, thrusting it toward her on the end of a hat pin. "This candle is nearly burned out, so I'm afraid I can't offer you any more." "It really is time to bob for apples," said Bettina. "Who's ever heard of a Halloween party without that? And we must each try to bite the swinging donut. And then we must blindfold each other and try to pin the tail on the unfortunate black cat. Bob, will you carry this tub into the living room? And Ruth, will you remove the popcorn balls to the piano bench? Perhaps someone will grow hungry from the exertion of these games." I have Bettina's surprise salad, which has apples, peppers, grapes, pineapple, nut meats, and salad dressing, and marshmallows. Halloween sandwiches are just bread and butter with a thimble to cut out circles for the eyes, nose, and cut the mouth with a butter knife. The butter showing through gives the resemblance to the features. And jumbles are cookies with grape jelly, again using a thimble to cut out eyes. Well, that's the end of the October portion of Bettina's Best Recipes. If this was your first time listening, this series started with the June chapters, when Bettina and Bob were first married and coming home to their little cottage. If you want to listen to the entire year, you can go to the playlist on my channel called Meal Planning with Bettina.